feature presentation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 106 of the Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is Mater approved, Eric Marchin.
Oh, I just laughing at the background
The
sound.
dishes in the background?
It usually comes from my end with the dogs. So
You know what? We're getting used to... Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We will be talking about our trip to Los Angeles this episode. We will be talking about... Who knows? Because I didn't prep anything. It's been a long day of recording. We recorded reviews for Ghostbusters, Home Sweet Home Alone, Red Notice. We did a Disney Plus Day conversation. You guys can check out all of that stuff right now on... the plethora of different channels we have. Just go to Letterboxd, Untitled_cast. You can probably find everything there, or on YouTube. Just search for Untitled Movie Podcast
or our main website.
But yeah, I'm still, obviously we moved a couple weeks ago. Nevis is doing some stuff in the kitchen. She's, love her. And she's been doing so much for this house. So I'm very appreciative. But I told her, I'm like, don't worry about making noise. It's totally fine. Just do your thing.
It adds character to the show.
Well, we got to get used to this smaller space because, like, when I had the house, I had a whole area, right, where I had that whole den area, and you'd have a little bit of sound bleed through because my sister would be on the main floor, but Nevis's office is in the upstairs, or even when Nevis was cooking dinner or something, I could still be downstairs and make it work, right? But we're in a small condo again, and it's a Saturday, and I'm trying to do it on a Saturday that way I don't have to annoy Nevis while she's working because she's working from home still. So, but that being said, she wants to do things around the house. So I'm like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Again, we're just like you guys. You guys are all at home right now too. And like, people got to do stuff around your house. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing or have her stop what she's doing. So you might hear some stuff click, clacking around in the background, but I don't know.
Shitty bang bang. That's all you got to say.
I'm not sure how much will come through when I do the editing and stuff, but
we're keeping it real.
We try, I got my little setup now. I got a ring light again. So, I should be better lit than before.
This podcast is just so
lit, bro. And then my TV's still here because we got to get rid of this. If you're watching the video version, this white cream cabinet thing over there, I want to get rid of so I can put my TV up there. But
sounds kind of lurid. Get into my cream cabinet.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, man, just I had some candy cane mini eggs earlier. Good shit. But Eric, yeah, we went to Los Angeles last weekend, and I
for
think
a hot minute.
That's kind of what I wanted to talk about on this show. We'll still talk about what we've been watching and different things like that. But on the news front, we did that Disney Plus Day conversation, so you guys can kind of head over there if you want to get all of our thoughts on the new Marvel stuff and the new announcements from Disney. But yeah, Eric and I had an opportunity last weekend to go down to Los Angeles for literally under 25 or 24 hours for a Netflix event for The Power of the Dog through the Critics' Choice Association. So to go screen the film as well as go to a press conference to hear Jane Campion, the director, and Benedict Cumberbatch and Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons and Cody Smith-McPhee and Ari Wagner and the whole team.
Who you almost body checked in the lobby.
I almost body checked. I did. I almost just took her head off by accident because we were getting ready to leave and I turned around and she was right there. And luckily I didn't hit her. But so we went to LA for literally 24 hours and we were going to maybe stay for another event. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But then after talking with you, we were like, you know what? We haven't done anything in quite some time.
This was both of our first trips anywhere on a plane in almost
since I went to LA right before the pandemic.
2 years. Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we decided, you know what? We knew we'd have to be tested 3 times. So once before you got tested 4 times.
Oh yeah. Cause I love it.
You just love it.
I love when people tickle my nostrils. In that
You
cream
went
cabinet.
you went even overboard. But
Well,
we
it was
knew
it was not like so reading the outline and then sort of booking the appointment and then talking to one of
I gotta get
the
my money back still. I forgot.
employers at Shopper. So I had booked a PCR test already, and I had booked that
That's what you
on.
needed to get home.
Yeah, so I booked that
But
on the
we needed an
Thursday.
antigen to get there.
Yeah, so I booked that, and that test was on the Friday morning, before going on the Saturday morning, the next day. But yeah, the antigen I booked for the Thursday morning, which is the rapid test that in like less than an hour. Both of which were negative, but it was weird because with the PCR test that I arranged in Canada, because we also had one in LA. The one in Canada, they said that they would send like a notification, and it never came through. And so I was grateful for having
The
done
Netflix
the
one.
Netflix one, because they send that to you almost within. It's almost like an
It was like
antigen.
it was like an hour later, which is
Yeah,
great.
and so you had that going back, and when I got back and I looked on the website and went into my account for the PCR for Canada, it was there, but they never gave me the
Did it
notification.
show when it came through? Like, what you have still gotten it
Yeah,
in time or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. No, it would have, but it just again like I was going under the assumption that I would get this text, because I was
Yeah,
even told by the pharmacist who was conducting the
that you
test
would, but they
that you
never
would get
did.
a notification.
Yeah, so I
And then we
think
did the
like
self tests as well.
oh yeah, so knowing how many times we had to be tested, we felt pretty comfortable. We knew everyone on the plane would have to be double vaxxed because that's what the rules are for the airport and airlines now. So we felt comfortable about going, and we knew we were going to this Netflix event where everyone would be double vaxxed and tested. So like,
So the risk was minimized.
yeah, we felt okay about it, right? And
Mhm.
like I was talking to a lot of people, and you're like, this is kind of the new normal for the next little while, right? So like you kind of have to get back to your quote unquote normal life or things you'd want to be doing. You just got to be safe about it, and you have to know that there is some risk there because unless you just stay at your house and have no interaction with anyone, there's going to be a risk. But we felt comfortable enough doing this trip, and I'm glad we did it. But it was quite the whirlwind, 48 hours. So we knew we were going to be in and out, but we still felt like, you know what, it's being paid
Well, we
for.
knew we
Like,
were going to be in and out, and
um,
we also knew that we were going to go to
gonna
In-N-Out
get in
Burger.
and out. Hell yeah, dog. So I mean, we could just go through the whole trip. So, we get tested beforehand. Both of us. It was my first COVID test because
Same with me.
I hadn't gotten tested. Like Nevis and Sarah, my sister, had just through everyone was fine, but
And your
general
sister actually just got
ang-
a bee tattoo in honor of The
she
Wicker Man
did,
starring Nicolas
and she knows how
Cage.
much I hate fucking bees.
Big Wicker Man
So
fan.
yeah, huge. My first COVID test was totally fine. Like it does, like at least mine that I got at the airport, because I live near the airport, it was like just that like out almost felt like the outside edge of each nostril. It just went
It almost
around. It was
feels
like totally
like
fine.
like you're about to sneeze. Like you have that tickle in your nose
I
that
didn't
you
get that in my first one, but the self test I did. But like,
because you're overcompensating,
yeah,
because you think like when you're doing it yourself, you're thinking like, oh, I gotta make sure like I really get in there, and like the instructions are, for each nostril turn it like 15
and push
times.
it in until it stops. That's what
Yeah,
they
yeah,
say, and I'm like, yeah.
like you'll know when like there's pressure. And then like I'm thinking to myself, am I gonna do this too hard where like when I pull it out my brain comes out?
That's how I felt, dude. So we did these tests. We both met at the airport. You had a little anxiety when we got there because of they sent you to a basically a holding pen, and
Yeah, the lounge as they call it. And
the
what's also
lounge. Okay.
and what's also strange is like, for anybody that's going to be traveling in the next little while, especially if they're from Toronto and going to Pearson Airport, um, you know,
What a difference Pearson and LAX was.
well,
Anyways,
even Vancouver, right? Like it was so chill when we had that connecting flight there. It was so weirdly relaxed, and we'll get into that later. But
except
um,
there's no food anywhere.
no, no, no. Well, there is Fanta.
Just and a
But
Lululemon.
yeah, but going back to like the traditional sort of thing of going to the airport is be there 3 hours before your flight, and it was an early
Yes
flight.
and no, but yeah.
Yeah, but Usually.
Right now, they specifically say be there 3 hours before because of everything, COVID and all
Which
that
is a
stuff.
joke. It is a joke. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that caused anxiety the most, and I feel like it's counterproductive to what is actually going on, because you get there, like I got there at around like 4:30. I woke up at 3, I
Classic
shaved.
Eric fashion. Get there 3 hours. I'll be there 3.5 hours early.
Joke's on you guys. So I get there, the gates are closed. There's no way to get in. I
Yeah.
go to ask somebody. The person that I ask didn't know anything. Like all she said is just go sit in the lounge. She didn't tell me like, oh, you have to sit in the lounge because
And we'll
now there's
call your
new,
flights or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's new sort of there's a new mandate and a pecking system in which we bring people up to the gate. So there was none of that. And then when it got to that, thankfully you were there, because if I was by myself, I would be shitting my pants and having the panic attack. And
I
then also with like the
I
tech
like that
stuff
I
and
can come
appraisal.
in and just be like, it's cool. We're gonna do this. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then just like literally getting in there and then like thinking like, okay, because I've done this so many times before now, and like even though it's been 2 years, like I've done it enough where it's like,
You've done this LA trip, numerous times.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like, okay, I understand there'll be some extra sort of hurdles to sort of cross, and I understand that. But once we actually started going through, which was like an hour or so before boarding, and once you get to the customs part of it, that's where it's like, okay, well, maybe if they had opened things up earlier and allowed people just to go through naturally
Security
when
at least. Yeah.
yeah, like, because it almost felt like there was more people clustered in different flights, and like nobody was going to make it to their flight
And you're
based
not
on
rewarding the people who do get there early. You're
no.
just putting everyone together, right? So they made us wait a whole hour in this quote unquote lounge, which is really just a section of the airport where they tell you to wait until they call your flight. And then 2 hours before our flight is when they called us, less than 2 hours, I think, to go up and go through security. And I just felt like we had the worst luck when it came to, whether it was the people we were in front of or getting pulled into separate lines. So like we got sent to the guy who has to put the little swab in to see if you whatever at the extra security part. Then we went to a separate security line, which took longer. And then when we got to customs, I got stuck behind two separate people that got pulled away by customs. Like, so the two people ahead of me, or sorry, one person ahead of me, he had no carry-on luggage or anything, and she's asking him a bunch of questions. And then she pulled him aside to go into that side room to be like questioned more by customs. Homie behind me goes, "Yo, bro, my flight's at 8 a.m. Can I go before you?" And he's like the guy directly behind me. When you get, when you got separated into
Yeah.
like the separate lines, and then I'm like, man, my flight's at 8:15. I'm like, it's not like
But
I
it's also
also
probably not his fault either. Like in terms of like
no.
not him asking you for that, but like he probably also got there at the time he was supposed to. So it
Sure.
makes you wonder. It's like, well, if
He
you
got
miss
there
your
a little bit late because he would have been ahead of us because we got pulled aside and he was like right behind us. So
right,
like he definitely got there late, which is fine. And I'm a nice guy and like I'm just like I I wanted to be like, bro, I want to get through security too, man. Like I wanted to get a coffee and eat something. Like I'm also sweating because I'm going, fuck, we're gonna have to go right to the gate after this. Like we're not gonna have time to do anything. And
no,
this guy's asking to go ahead of me. So then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. And then because this is while the woman was taking the other guy to security or whatever to question him more. She comes back, he goes ahead. You're already through at this point. Like
oh hell yeah.
you're
But
gone.
there was a woman in front of me that was going through some procedures with
Yeah.
fingerprints, which I thought was
Oh
interesting
yeah, I
because I
saw a
hadn't
lot of
seen
people
that
do that.
before.
I've seen people do that, but I so homie goes ahead of me and I let him go ahead of me. And he's going to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and because he talked to me a little bit while we were waiting for this
But we
woman
had
to
a
come
few people
back.
talk to us.
And we're just friendly guys. I don't know, friendly looking guys. So this guy goes ahead and I am listening and he's getting questioned and he's like, uh, where are you going? Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to stay with my grandparents. How long? He's like 4 months. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I work for my dad. I sell jewelry. And they're like, okay. And they're like, are you
Uncut
bringing any?
gems.
And he's like, they're like, are you bringing any? He's like, yeah, I'm bringing a bunch. And he had like thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. Well, that's a red flag. So then they pull him aside, and then she closes her little thing again. And I'm like, oh my God, why? And at this point, we've already been 2 hours waiting in this thing. Like, it's like 45 minutes until our flight or something, or half an hour until our flight. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want a coffee. I'm like, I got here 3 hours before. I like getting to the airport.
Well,
early.
that's the incentive,
I'm
right?
one of those guys.
Once you get
Like,
past
the stressful stuff, you can have an iced coffee.
You can unwind.
And the way home, LAX was that, which was great. And then so she gets pulled away. Then eventually someone else comes over. They're like, just go to that line over there. And I think they have like a secret line where they bring people if they know you've been like screwed and been waiting for a while. Because I got
the screwed line.
I got this to the other guy, and he was just letting people through. They're just like almost like, okay, you seem pretty trustworthy. Or unfortunately, I'm not going to racially profile you like it looks like they were doing with other people. And they just like, my privilege.
You're white enough.
Yeah. And unfortunately, yes. Like, and they're just like, go to this guy. And this guy was just like asking 2 questions and just letting people through. So eventually, like, I feel like he was like the line where they're like, just go to this guy and he'll just let you through kind of thing. So I got through, and then I met up with you. And we had to go straight onto our flight because our flight was already boarding.
Yeah, because I went to the Starbucks and it was like the line was down the hall. It was just ridiculous. It was like, there's no way. Because I went to you
and I asked you, and you're like, yeah, bro, it's. So we both bought like a water at a very overpriced water, and then or you bought a Diet Pepsi.
Yeah, and I bought I bought a Diet Coke and a gum. Because I like chewing gum on the plane because of the air and the pressure.
We go, and we had to board our flight right away, and then ironically we had to wait around because some people didn't clear customs in time, so they did hold up the plane for those people who were stuck in customs. And then it was a pretty packed flight. Pretty much every seat was sold. We had a guy in between me and you, and then had a direct flight to LA very early in the morning. Flight there is pretty chill.
The flights both there and back were pretty smooth. Like
there
wasn't really any turbulence.
Oh no, and I get anxious in turbulence, but the more I fly, the more it's totally normal now. I don't really get that anxious anymore. But I watched Ghostbusters on the way there. I did not listen to the Kind of Funny podcast of it because I forgot to download Ghostbusters 1, but watched some other stuff, listened to some podcast stuff, and then kind of chilled on the plane. I think you did the same, tried to sleep a little bit.
Yeah, there was one point where I think you were, or I was waking up, or you woke me up to let me know.
Oh, I tried. They paid for our food. Oh, that was the other thing. We were starving. We were both so hungry because we didn't eat breakfast or have coffee.
Because we thought we would get it on the other side.
And I was slamming back like Diet Coke or Coke Zeros and waters and stuff on the plane. And then like they finally came with the food stuff, and they were like, "Oh, sir, we have your name on this list. Your food's already paid for." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." I had no idea. So that was a nice surprise. So I got a breakfast sandwich and a bag of cookies and cream trail mix thing, Hershey's cookies and cream trail mix stuff, because I got to select one food item like from the top and one snack item. So breakfast sandwich was terrible, but it was food. It was just a crummy microwave, breakfast sandwich. And the cookies and cream trail mix, I just inhaled all of that stuff. And you were out cold, but I was like, oh, well, Eric might want the free food. So like, I'll wake him up because like they were trying to get your attention. And I don't think they knew that we knew each other. I was like, Eric. And you were just kind of sleeping. And then I think I like jabbed you, and your eyes were so red, dude. You woke up, you're like, and then I was like, do you want food? They paid for it. But I don't think you were like comprehending what I was saying, because I was like, they paid.
Well, also
for
it was
food.
hard to hear you just because I was at the
air
window
pressure
and
everything,
and being half unconscious.
Yeah, and I was like, they paid for the food because I knew you were hungry, but I also knew that you also were anxious about, the masks and everything. I didn't know if you wanted to take off your mask to eat on the plane or whatever, but I was trying to tell you, being like, no, Netflix paid for the food. And you were like, and I don't want it. And then the guy's like, but it's paid for. And like, you were like, no, no. And then he's like, you don't want it's free. And then like,
See, I didn't even know he was saying that.
I'm like,
I only thought he
will
was just like, eh.
in my head, I'm like, Aaron, fucking get the food. I'll eat it, bro. And yeah. So then, other than that, that was the only eventful thing on that flight. Right? Because the other thing was on the way home, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the flight from LA. We'll get to that.
Oh God.
So we land in LA, and we had carry-on luggage, so we didn't have to wait for it, even though it didn't really matter because we had to walk so far to get to the Ubers that it really didn't matter if we had checked luggage or not. Luckily had some free Ubers because the Ubers were all expensive everywhere.
Yeah, we had 4 each.
We decided we had a couple hours to kill before the Power of the Dog event. So we had a couple things we wanted to accomplish. You wanted to get Blu-rays without the French on them. So we had to go to Target and Best Buy to check out some stuff for you. And I needed to go to Target because I wanted to get Marvel Villainous, the first expansion, the Loki expansion, for Nevis and myself. We still haven't played it yet, but I did end up getting it. But we went to a Target across the street. Oh, we did finally get some Starbucks, which is great.
Well, also when we got to the hotel that we were staying at, they gave us a this basically the COVID
I ate that
test,
shit like a seagull too,
and this
like
God, it was disgusting.
They gave us like this little breakfast box thing with a croissant and a muffin.
Matt, I am so happy that no one saw me eat that because it was literally just my
like
face going into, into this box. It was just
as
disgusting.
I'm doing a COVID test, and before we like showered and went on our day, we decided to get like ready for the event. That way we didn't have to change later, which was a good call. We did the self-COVID test. We got some Starbucks, went to a Target across the street. You got a Blu-ray for Zola,
which Ari Wagner also was a cinematographer on.
Yeah, that was a good tie-in. Giant Coffee went back. No, sorry. Then we went back and did our own COVID tests, and which was an interesting experience. They gave us like a battery-powered self antigen test essentially, and even though we had the antigen test from before, we needed to do one closer to the event because they wanted it within a certain time frame, which was good peace of mind that everyone at these events had to do this test in their room and take a photo of it or upload it and stuff like that. So that was an interesting experience because we had to do this self-COVID test and just shoving that shit up your nose and twisting the right amount of times and stirring it in this purple liquid and
then pushing it into
this thing that
which was the only part that I had problems with
because I wasn't sure if it was working properly.
Did I break it?
All right. Yeah. That was a fun experience. Hotel,
but it went smoother than I thought it would.
Definitely.
Like it was a lot easier. Like I think everything leading up to the flight was the most stressful, but then once the flight happened, the flight was fine. Once we landed and got to the hotel, all that was taken care of. Then there was a little bit of stress of doing the self-administered test, but even that, once it was done, was fine. And like, I think overall it was handled more really so well, any of the lead up to everything.
Yeah, totally. And so once we did that, we were like, okay, we got some time. Let's go over to Hollywood Boulevard, right where all the touristy stuff is, because there's another Target there that we were going to go to, and we're like, let's get In-N-Out Burger as well.
We were really pushing it at that
point.
We
got lots of time.
Well, because we had to take the other test as well, right? So that's where we took the PCR test because they were setting up like a makeshift lab where, like on the same floor, there was another luncheon party thing going on. So that was
so weird.
Yeah.
So we're like, we got lots of time, couple hours. That's plenty of time. And I always forget about LA traffic for one. And then we went to a Target. I found the board game. You found they didn't have movies at that Target, right?
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Sign of the times.
Physical media, man, it's hard to find it. Like even the Best Buy selection we eventually went to wasn't super great. It was fine, but
it was all A24 movies for me at this trip.
Then we go to the busiest In-N-Out Burger probably in LA because it's about 2 blocks from the most touristy spot of Los Angeles.
Oh
So
man, that In-N-Out
um,
burger was just packed.
it was it was very busy to the point where we're like, we got to be back in an hour. And I'm like, it said 20 minutes, but it really took us like 35 to get here.
And talk about
Um,
inhaling food. Oh my
yeah,
god.
we were like, should we get this In-N-Out burger? Because we wanted to sit down and enjoy it, but we're like, we got to take this back to the hotel and probably eat it like as we're getting our PCR test. Um, so we're like, let's get it to go. I got a double animal style with chopped chilies combo. I wasn't gonna do the combo because
You're
In
not a
and
big
Out,
fry guy at In-N-Out burger.
no, In and Out fries trash, like bottom tier fry at fast food restaurants. Um, but I'm like, I want a Coke and, I'll get the fries because I'm fucking starving because we've barely eaten anything. So I'll get fries. And then you ordered, what did you get? You got,
I got basically the same thing without tomato or without the chopped chilies, but now
yeah,
like the next time I go back, I'll go with the chopped chilies because I do like a little
adds a little
extra
spice. It's good. A little
spicy
acidity
boy.
too, because it's kind of like those, like sort of like banana pepper, but I don't know if they're banana peppers. But the chopped chilies are great. And then so we
And
get
every
that.
time you have that reluctance, like, oh, do I really want to go through all this to get this thing? It's like, and then you eat the burger and you're like, yeah, it was all
Oh,
worth
we'll
it.
get there though. But we get there. I get my number. You get your number. I'm 80. You're 82, and we're like, okay, we'll get it to go because we got to get going. We have an hour, and I'm like, we sit down and we fill up our drinks, and then they're like, number 59. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, or I think it was even less than that. It might have been like 50 something. And I'm like, fuck, dude, are there like 30 people ahead of us? And they have a shit ton of people working, but this was also the busiest In-N-Out I've ever been to in my life.
And it's also just
And
funny seeing like somebody like announce this on like a microphone and like it
yeah,
just it
some people are waiting outside, so they
yeah.
kind of have to like go through the thing. So I'm at this point kind of sweating because I'm like, it's my first Critics' Choice thing. I don't want to be the guy who's like holding up everyone because we were like, that's just me and you being anxious about everything. But like, I'm like, I don't want to hold up everyone because I needed to get fucking In-N-Out burger or miss my PCR test or something like that. But we really wanted this In-N-Out burger. Um, and I was sweating for a while there, and we had to call an Uber as we were like waiting, and I was looking at times for the Uber, and we had to get our drive back. And ironically, we were near the Netflix offices but had to go back to the hotel to get a shuttle to the Netflix offices. So we got our food. We ended up getting an Uber Black XL or whatever because it was the closest thing nearby. um and we made it back with like 20 minutes to spare until our shuttle was supposed to leave. And we went and dropped the food off in the hotel room, got our PCR tests, which were super quick, super easy, and then inhaled some warm to cold In-N-Out burger.
Didn't matter.
But it didn't matter. It was still delicious. And like, I crushed it. You crushed it. And I'll even say, talked a lot of shit about In-N-Out fries. They kind of hit the spot in that moment. Like if you're in the right headspace where you're just really, really hungry and they're like kind of soggy because like they were just sweating in the bag with everything. I'm like, you know what? They were salty and they were just like, I'm into this right now. They're not good French fries, but like I'll take
But
this
they
right
work in a
now.
pinch.
Yeah, like they weren't like I don't want to eat these. And I've never done the animal style fries yet because I was just like I will die if I eat that right now.
It's
Like
so much sodium. Like
yeah.
even eating the burger, which is amazing, you know how unhealthy it is. Like it's just
But we
I
needed it.
get
We hadn't eaten
yeah.
all day, so like
And it's
it
also a
was
treat. Like it's like something that you can only get in LA, and it's almost like every time you go to LA, it's like if you don't go to In-N-Out Burger, you're doing it wrong. You know, you need to go there once.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And I it was delicious. And then we made the shuttle, and of course the shuttle was delayed by a bunch anyway, so we probably had more time than we even
And
thought
there
we
were
did.
two
But
theaters as well. So
yeah, so that's the other thing. We're boarding the shuttles, and I'm like, Eric, do you have your vaccination stuff? And you're like, no, I don't have the paper.
which I did.
I'm like, you don't have a digital version? And you're like, and you're like, I'm like, well, they need to see that before we get on. We had to show a photo of our COVID test and our vaccination stuff. And then you're like, I got to go get it from my hotel room. And I'm like, okay, I'll just meet you there. Like, I'll get on this bus, and like, I don't want to hold people up either, or feel like we can't we're attached at the hip or whatever. We're trying to be cool in front of everyone. Where I really should have just waited for you because of,
It's fine.
yeah, I know, but like, I enjoyed doing this trip with you, and
Yeah, same.
because of this, we got split up and put on two different shuttles and went to two different theaters. So you ended up going, oh, I did have it. I'm like, oh my god. And I'm messaging you being like, oh, I'll hold you a seat in the theater. And we get to the Netflix office, so you can describe your side and I'll describe my side, because we went to completely different locations.
Well, you ended up coming to the location that I was at, because that's where the after party was.
So you were in that building where the after party
that's
was?
where
Okay.
that's where the theater is too.
Yeah. So I'm on the shuttle. They had to drive right past where we just were, like in the Target and the In-N-Out Burger and stuff like that. And so I went to the Netflix Studios building, like where their studio sets are and stuff like that. Like we walked past a set for, oh God, is there a show about a family on Netflix? Like
I think there's several.
I don't know. So we went to a studio, and we went into their front building there, and they had a big Power of the Dog kind of LED banner, and they had all their Emmys up on this green wall kind of thing. And then we went into a screening room, which was smaller than I thought it was going to be honest. But it reminded me of, like, if anyone's been to a private screening room at, um, every studio has them, but sometimes a hotel will have a screening room in the basement or whatever like that. So it kind of felt like that, but a little bit bigger, properly masked, things like that. So I think your screening room looked pretty similar, but I don't know what the entrance of that building, like, did you go in where the party was, like where that was?
Yeah,
That
it was like literally right across from the Arby's, which has that magnificent Arby's sign.
That's incredible. Yeah. Because I think we drove by that Arby's when we were coming home or whatever. So like I knew where we were. So yeah, and then we both separately watched Power of the Dog in two different theaters. I was so tired. Everyone can check out our Power of the Dog review from TIFF, if you want to get our thoughts on that. But
it was nice seeing it on a big screen, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That first watch I watched at home, which you did the same. I think it definitely benefited from seeing it in a theater. I think you definitely get more from it a second time. I gave it the same star rating I gave the first time, but like I still enjoyed it more this time.
Especially when you know where it's going and you watch it again and you kind of see certain elements being laid out for you, because it is a film that I even mentioned in the review, is that it's hard to kind of pin down what it is.
Yeah.
And then when you start to see the mechanics of it start to kind of, motion, it is fascinating, because I think there is something to say about how integral Cody Smith McPhee's performance is, and when that character is introduced and then comes back into the film, and kind of the tone of the movie and where that goes. And I think a lot of that is, again, like you pick up on it more the second time, and obviously also like the sound design is more sort of enhanced, and the cinematography looks beautiful on a bigger screen, and the performances I think are all really interesting and layered in a way that like you really pick up on little sort of gestures and hints of what the characters are up to. And yeah, even though I think I do like the movie a little bit more than Matt, it's just when you watch a movie like that on a big screen that also has these beautiful vistas, you just appreciate it more than watching it at home, even if you do have a really good home theater system.
No, I totally agree. And then after that, I met a lot of the different Critics' Choice people. Joey Magison that we had on the show once. I met him in person.
He's
Met
fun
a
to talk
ton.
to.
Yeah, I met a ton of different people, which was really, really cool. So um, then we went to the after party, which was in the building that Eric was in. So we reunited after a couple hours of being apart.
Felt
Um,
like eternity.
um, went to this after party, which was, your classic kind of. I've been to 100 of them when I worked in marketing, open bar kind of, free food stuff. They had like a buffet, where they had, I knew they were going to do some sort of fried chicken, and they did have some sort of fried
They had a
chicken.
really good honey
Sweet honey
sauce. It
sauce.
was
Like,
really
it
good.
reminded me of when I was a kid, when I would get McNuggets and dip them in honey, like just the pure honey at McDonald's.
Well,
But
funnily enough, it
obviously,
was from McDonald's, the catering.
yeah. No, it wasn't. So I had a couple cocktails. I was saying this to Nevis, like, I thought I haven't had a drink of alcohol in like a long time. And I was saying that the other day, being like, oh, I still haven't had an alcohol in a really long time. And then I forgot that I drank at this event, but I didn't really get hammered or anything. I had
No,
some
no.
bourbon and sodas. We chatted with, some of the Canadian contingent of the CCA. We talked with some new people that we met, and just kind of, it was a fun event. We stayed longer than we thought. We thought we would probably bail out early, but we ended up staying until the shuttles took us home. We met Nathaniel Rogers, nice
The
guy,
film experience.
um,
Yep.
a great dude. Talked with him a lot at the screening and the after party. I met Lindsay Scully, who's the head of PR at Netflix, for the first time. It was lovely to meet her as well. The head of PR for Canada, sorry, I should say.
Yes. Yeah.
And just met a lot of the Critics' Choice and Netflix people. So really cool event. Really grateful that they invited us to go down. It is just kind of a good reminder of, hey, we have this movie that we would
It's a
like you to
very
consider.
silly
But
and surreal experience that kind of
yeah,
basically sums up what LA is in general. And it's like, it's just, it was, I think I had more fun even with sort of the parameters of what the pandemic has sort of caused now in terms of how you get through the thing, doing it with you, because every time I've done it before, which I'm still very grateful for, it's just kind of weirdly lonely and awkward. And like, there are other Canadian members that have gone before, but like, I
yeah, and
don't
you
know
know
them as
them.
well.
You
Like,
know them, but me and you were, obviously great friends, and we do this show together and everything. So it obviously, to me, for as my first experience, was a blast doing it with you.
where
So
we can go sit in a
um,
corner and hang
let
out
the
with
people come to us and not have to
exactly.
just not feel so awkward, because we have one another to talk to. So I totally agree with you on that front. So yeah, we went to that, and then I was so tired when we got back. We also had a per diem at the hotel and stuff, but they weren't doing room service or anything. So like, I was gonna go to the bar at the hotel when I got back, but it was like 10:30 or 11 p.m., and I was like,
And you're still
which
adjusting to the
which
time
would have
difference.
been 1 a.m. here, right? But
Yeah.
or 2 a.m., and we're running off very little sleep, and I'm just like, I gotta crash. So
I had some
uh,
peanuts from the bar.
I couldn't find the mini bar. If I
The
did,
mini bar was
I would have
underneath the
emptied that shit out.
TV.
Would
Well,
have
there were
emptied
some
that
people
shit.
that were.
I know you said that.
So
Yeah.
like the next day there were people that were like, I was like, good for you, man. Like I
I
wish I
mean, you
could do
got that
that.
per diem, use it. I'm all about that. And then next morning we wake up and we have a brunch and a press conference to go to
At the Four Seasons
at the
in
Four
Beverly
Seasons.
Hills, yeah.
The LA Marathon is that day. So they're like, we're gonna leave a little bit early, like 8:30 for the brunch, even though the press conference isn't until noon. So we got up early, packed all our shit, took that shit to Four Seasons. Um, had a delicious breakfast brunch. Where again, we kind of just we're like, we'll just go over here. What
Yeah.
table's the most empty?
Exactly.
No offense, I love, like, everyone's great, but I'm not a big schmoozer. I will gladly talk to
Yeah, if
I'd
someone
be,
comes to you and wants to talk
yeah.
or sits with you, like that's fine.
And I hope no
Yeah,
one thinks I'm rude for not, doing that, but I'm not one to,
work the room.
yeah. I will have I love talking with people, like at the airport, random people talk to us, whatever. Like I'll gladly have a conversation. Um, and like we talked a lot with Nathaniel and Joey and stuff like that. That was kind of the crew that formed around us, and we stuck with them a lot. But and then Terry Hart and Chris Bromby, is that no
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah, from Joe Blow,
Yeah,
right?
Chris and a couple other
And
people
he's from
too. So
Montreal.
yeah,
So there are some Canadian film critics, like a lot of them are sort of in Toronto, they're clustered in Toronto, but then you
yep,
have a couple in Montreal, and then
or
you also have a
Vancouver or
couple
something.
in Vancouver. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also Mariska, is that
Yes, yep,
yeah.
Mariska, yeah.
Mariska, I met for the first time. Lovely. Had a nice chat with her at the brunch. So yeah, we got to see, some people from Canada, some people you knew from Twitter, different things like that. So,
And what was also
um,
really nice is that there was no hostility or like not that we've had any bad interactions with anybody on Twitter in that way, but like sometimes when you're following other members, you see certain people like having these kind of like tiff fights and things like that, and it's just
sure.
like whoa, like no thank you.
No,
I don't want to be a part of
we
that.
don't. We're usually not a part of that, and we even talked about that in our Ghostbuster review a little bit, and we got some reaction for Dune and other things. But it's again, it's all subjective, and like I'm not.
Yeah, apparently
I,
you're a very disappointing person when it comes to your Eternals review.
I'm been hearing it my whole life, Eric. Um, so we had this brunch, little breakfast burrito, little bacon. The bacon was delicious.
Yeah, it was really good. There was two types too. I only had the crispy bacon, but it
Oh yeah,
was
I
really
didn't do
good.
that turkey bacon. I went normal bacon,
Yeah.
and
They had French
so
toast, which was
I didn't
great.
have the French toast, but yeah, you did. And then we went and did the press conference. Once again, we I just sat at the back, or we sat at the back, and
And we like to
um,
we've talked about this before where like when it comes to film festival Q&As and things like that, we tend to avoid them because we're not that every audience member is going to ask a dumb question or a question that's cringeworthy, but there usually is at least one of those kind of questions
and
that
there's
come
not a
up.
lot of value that comes out of a Q&A, in
No.
my opinion. But I've always said, if you have the right moderator and you have the right group of journalists or something like that, they can be interesting to listen to. And I will say that this falls in the category of being a pretty decent press conference that was actually interesting to listen to the filmmakers and the actors talk about this great movie we just saw and saw at TIFF as well. So, um, especially when you have like great directors too, right? Like that's always been, I think, our thing is we lean more into the director, and I not idolizing, but like I'm not a big actor guy, right? Like I don't stardom and celebrity and like I have actors I'm a fan of, but
You're
that's
more of a
never.
fan of nearly decking cinematography.
Yeah, yeah. But cinematographers and directors are, people I'm more interested in hearing from than an actor. Not saying that I'm not interested in hearing from an actor, but that's always intrigued me. Like the only Q&As I've really ever stayed for is like I stayed for the Nolan Q&A at TIFF, or if it's a certain filmmaker that I've always wanted to see and hear in person, I'd be a little bit more willing to just then hear X
Or if they
person,
don't open it to the audience. That's
as long as
always
they
like,
don't open it to the
woo,
audience. It's
thank
great.
you.
So it was cool seeing everyone there and hearing Jane Campion talk and even Benedict talk about his method acting on the film
Being
and
a
Chris,
stinky boy.
yeah, and Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons, who I've really come to love as an
And he
actor.
just
So
seems like a nice guy. Like it doesn't like as much as like nobody seemed like an asshole or anything, but like Plemons just seems so like laid back and just was kind of like, yeah, I'm just, like just kind of enjoying it for what it is and talking and yeah, and like there was nobody that really asked a dumb question or a question that felt like it was opportunistic to ask about like Doctor Strange or Spider-Man or something like that. Like it was all on
no,
point, and there was one person that hijacked at the end
right at
there,
the
which
end, yeah.
which I don't even think it was like I couldn't really hear what the question was, but because it was a person right at the front. But I'm sure even that question wasn't bad because Jane Campion went into some interesting details. But
You could tell like they were like, this is the last question. The last question was asked, and someone needed to get in there to ask their question, which was fine. That made a little awkward, but
especially at the end. But I've never seen that before out of all of these things that have been kind of like set up. Like usually it's really well organized. So I wonder if that was somebody that was new to the Critics' Choice who kind of was like maybe their first time and they're right at the front, and so it's kind of like a giddy experience, and it's like, oh well, this is something I want to ask, so I'm just gonna take my shot at it. But yeah, that was like the only kind of like awkward thing. And again, like it wasn't even necessarily the question that was awkward or the response. Like it was still a thoughtful response and everything, but it was just sort of like, okay, like maybe it is a little disrespectful to everybody else who was kind of, waiting their turn if their opportunity was called based on the numbers that we, selected or didn't. And so
Mhm.
like you have to kind of be respectful of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it was good. I thought it was a good press conference, and then yeah, I almost body checked Ari Wagner on the way out by accident. Luckily, did not. And then that was pretty much like our trip. We didn't really have much more time. We went to a mall in Culver City after because you wanted to stop at one more Best Buy.
Picked up the
And
Green Knight and On the Rocks,
just had an
completing my A24
A24.
trilogy
Yeah,
of Blu-rays. But we also
yeah.
saw Patrick Fleischer, who's probably
Oh
best
yeah,
known for Mulholland Drive, in the scene where, he, after spending some time in the diner, walks outside and sees the woman in that one jump scare.
yeah. It's
Popped up in a lot of David Lynch movies.
yeah, he yeah, randomly saw him walking through the mall with his daughters, I think. And
Yeah.
then
He's also in Under the Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield.
yeah, underrated A24.
Yeah.
Um
Those
so
eyebrows are hard to you can't mask those eyebrows.
and then we thought we were pushing it there too because we're like we got to get to the airport 3 hours
We had
early.
so much
Um
time. But
yeah,
but again, it's to your point.
LAX
It's
is
a
so
different
much.
process,
God,
right?
they have it down pat, and I know it's the busiest airport, in North America, and it's like,
Would you think
it's
an airport in like New York would be busier, right? Like
yeah,
LaGuardia
JFK is
or
pretty,
JFK.
yeah, it's pretty busy, but I think LAX because it's also like I think a big connecting point if you're going, to Japan or
Or
Hawaii or like yeah,
Australia.
Australia. So I think it's like because of that, it's so busy because it's a lot of connecting flights and things like that. So I think they just have it down pat because it's so gigantic, and I guess where Air Canada flies out of, everything is so separated that you don't really get bogged down with the security, at least the times I've been there. The security is always kind of busy, but they have it like TSA there is just they have it down pat. As long as you know what to do and you can separate your luggage and take your shoes off and do all that stuff, you're pretty much fine. And as long as no one slows it down that way. But and then I forgot, like in Toronto, we go through customs on the way home. You don't go until you get back to Canada. So we didn't really have to do that at LAX.
And
So
we actually had time to get coffee
we
and
got through like in 20 minutes. So we got there a little bit over 3 hours. So like when we got through security, we're like, all right, we got 3 hours
I
now.
should have
So
eaten there.
I should have too. We both fucked up. We were talking, Nevis, I was talking to her about it. She's like, why didn't you eat at LAX? There was like,
Did you tell her I got Fanta?
no, I didn't know. But I'm like, there were good restaurants in LAX that we could have eaten at. There's some Wolfgang Puck restaurants. It could have tied into our Wolfgang.
They have Shake Shack, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how far we had to walk for Shake Shack.
I
But
think it was like right down the hall.
oh,
Like
was it?
yeah.
There was a burger place, but it wasn't
Or
Shake
maybe
Shack.
maybe it wasn't Shake
There
Shack,
was
but there
like a
was a
different
burger
burger place,
place.
and there was
Yeah.
a taco place, and there's some Wolfgang Puck pizza places and other things. Um,
Like in the movie Wolfgang.
but we just decided, you know what? I got a beer. I did get a mango cart, a nice mango beer, which they let you get to go, and I just drank it at the gate like a sad man. um, And then I got a bag of combos because I'm like, oh, I want a snack thing for the plane. Like,
And
so
you bought me a iced coffee, which I appreciated.
we did get Starbucks again.
Yeah, and I also had to. So this is the other thing that stresses me out, and this is nothing to do with the flight or anything like that. So when you're going to, somewhere, and someone asks you if you can, look out for something or do something. So my dad asked me
Oh
to
yeah.
buy him a shirt, whether it be a Chargers shirt or a California Republic shirt, and I was like, yeah, sure, if I see something. And I also got asked about like baby clothing because I'm now an uncle.
Oh, congrats. We haven't
Yeah,
talked about that on the
hooray.
show. Yeah.
Ivor is now one of the world and will be disappointed with it when he becomes more conscientious. Um, so anyway, so I'm looking out for that stuff, and it really came up empty. And then when we were like back at the airport at LAX, I saw the shirts, and I was sending texts to my dad and photos, and he's I'm like this too sometimes, but when it comes to clothing, it's the worst. But he was so indecisive where it's like, okay, no, I actually want this, but does the Charger shirt come in a light blue? And I'm like, no, they don't have any light blue. It's literally what I sent you. And it's like, look, Dad, I'm just gonna get you a California Republic shirt. That's it. Like this, I'll buy you something for Christmas. Like, just please make this stop. And so other than that, like um, it was pretty relaxing when we got to LAX. Like once like we kind of got situated and we're waiting around, and
It was pretty chill. Yeah, yeah. It was a
you
lot of
had the
waiting in
beer and
airports and in airports this whole trip. But yeah, I had a beer. I had a beer, a coffee, and a water in classic Matt fashion. And yeah, we just chilled by the gate for a while. But we definitely should have gotten food. We definitely had more time for it because then we eventually board our flight.
our seats got changed too for those
Right, we
flights.
weren't sitting together.
Well, we were for the LA to Vancouver
Right,
flight.
right. And you're right. And we didn't have anyone in between us, which is lovely,
Yeah.
right? We had an empty middle seat, which was great. But on that flight, uh a woman a little pukey puke before we took off. So we're sitting at the gate and we're about to, I think we were on the tarmac, like driving to, the to take off, and it's going forever, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is like a long drive on the LAX
It's like
tarmac.
Fast and Furious 6.
Yeah, and then we hear a thing going, ladies and gentlemen, we have a woman on board who is feeling ill, and for the safety of other passengers, we need to turn back to the gate and let her off. And you could just hear people like, oh, like groan because we're already 40 minutes past our takeoff time or whatever. And you're like, okay, what's going on? And then we get back to the gate, and they had to bring a cleaning crew on. They took her off, and I mean, we weren't near her, but it looked like she puked all over the plane, and they had to clean it up and then let her off. So
I will say
that
though
was
that
fun.
the procedures in place for that were pretty good, like in terms of like bringing in cleaning crew and getting it done. And then
At least they didn't make
got,
all of us get off or anything like that.
yeah,
Would have been a nightmare.
and once they kind of got in there and cleaned, they were pretty quick and they were pretty efficient in terms of everything. And then like once that was done, we were good
We
to
were an
go.
hour behind, but we were, we took off to Vancouver, and then, we were supposed to have 3 hours in Vancouver, but we ended up having two. Had to go through customs, which all their machines were down, so I had to do that manually. But it was pretty chill. When you come back to Canada, they don't care. They're
Which was
just like,
also strange because I was thinking it was going to be harder to get back, because like when I was going through customs and they were asking me things about like what was your reason for traveling, like I also thought they wanted to have like the PCR test ready to go. They didn't even ask me for that, which I thought was weird.
no, we never got asked for any of our vaccination or testing. And I think they were going on a system where you might be pulled from line. Like it's almost like an honor system thing. And then like they were randomly testing people or pulling them out of line. So coming back, pretty chill. We get to the Vancouver airport. Where we landed was really nice, but it was totally empty. And I was like, this is eerie. It was all dark, and it looked really nice, and there looked like there were restaurants and shops there. But we walked through this empty part of the airport, and we get to the domestic terminal to fly back to Toronto, and just filled with people, but a ghost town when it came to food and drink options. And at this point, we hadn't eaten since the breakfast, right? I
Yeah.
had a whole bag of combos, which tied me over. Um, like six, it says 6 servings on the bag, and I'm like, I crushed that entire thing, and like the
But it
thousand.
was a smaller bag too, which like it wasn't like a family size bag or something like
It was
that.
like it wasn't the single serving bag that you can get at like a convenience store. It was like that medium sized bag, but like it still said 6 servings, and I'm like, the 900 calories from those combos just let me cruise through the day. So because you went and got a Fanta, and then
Oh God, I hated it.
Nevis loves Fanta. How dare you?
Maybe it was just the North American version of
It was
Fanta. It's
probably
just
also sitting in that thing for a while,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know. But there was only 2 vending machines at this fucking domestic terminal, so we just also couldn't eat there. And then on the plane, I think it's only over flights that are over 5 hours where they pay for your food. Anything under 5 hours, they don't pay for your food. And I didn't feel like buying food on the airplane again because one, it's garbage and overpriced.
Yeah.
And then on our way home, which was an overnight red eye flight, I was like, oh, I'll sleep. Didn't fucking sleep.
Same.
Um,
And so when I got on the plane for that was the most interesting thing because that's where they also changed our seats. So we weren't sitting with each
oh,
other
right.
when we
Yeah.
were going from Vancouver back to Toronto. So when I get to, because I requested window seats for, I just like kind of being tucked off in the corner and trying to sleep or just kind of zone out and doing my own thing. Um, so when I got to my seat, which was kind of near the back, there was this little boy sitting in my seat, and I was like, okay, like did I get the wrong seat? Or and I'm looking at him. No, I'm in the right spot. And then it was either his grandmother or his mother who was on the aisle seat across from where I was sitting or where this kid was sitting, who was looking out the window, was talking to me, but she didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't know what she was saying. So I was kind of like trying to interpret. It's like, does she want me to sit next to him for the flight if there's nobody there, or does she want me to just let him kind of like look out the window until like people show up? Or I'm like, even though it's in the back, am I holding up people? So I'm literally like, I do not know what to do in this situation. So I literally just sat next to him and sat there. And then about like maybe 5-10 minutes afterwards, 2 women come up, and I'm sitting in one of these women's seat, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to sit here, but this boy just does, I don't know. And then this woman who's across the aisle starts speaking again, and the woman this one woman looks at her and gives her, I don't know if it was a dirty look or it was like a kind of like, come on, what are you doing? And then as soon as she did that, the grandmother or the mother tells the boy to come back. And so then I moved to that seat. And then through the rest of the flight, I had 2 Texans with the most stereotypical Southern drawl behind me, being so obnoxious.
Free entertainment, man.
Oh, it was bad. Like, it started out like kind of comical because like they were talking about how like what they wanted to order food wise, and they were like, let's go with the Greek salad and the pizza.
You were talking mad shit about people ordering pizza on the
because
airplane.
because I think pizza on like if
First
you're
people
ordering,
were children, which I understand that.
yeah, but
Maybe
it's
not
the first step to being
grown
a
adult.
sociopath. I think it's like one of those warning signs. I just think like I've seen pizza once before being ordered on one of these
Oh, it
flights.
can't be good. It's got to
Oh,
be the worst
it
pizza
doesn't
you've
even
ever
look like
had.
pizza. It looks almost like a
Yeah.
sandwich that's just been kind of like smushed together or
Ugh.
smushed smaller. But then they started talking about what you'd expect
Oh, yeah.
Southerners to kind of talk about, like, being in the back with other people ethnicity wise, and it was
Oh,
kind of like,
God.
oh, great.
It's uncomfortable.
So yeah, I didn't get any sleep either, and then there was also a screaming baby closer to you. So
Yeah, there was a screaming baby a row or two behind me. I had the awkward thing of trying to be, again, a gentleman and help this older woman with her luggage, but she wanted to put it up with mine, and my luggage was there first, and then I put hers up, and hers wasn't fitting in the thing with mine, and I was like, when you're stuck in that thing where you kind of just want to say, like, I don't know what to tell you, like, I was here first. Like, your shit's not fitting in here, but I'm trying to also help you because you can't lift it up and put it in there. And I just had that awkward thing of being like, I don't know what to do right now. And then eventually her grandson or something came over and like helped, but that was the only awkward thing I had. So yeah, we went 28 hours, I think, without sleeping, which I hadn't done in a while. Like, I haven't done like an all-nighter kind of just running off adrenaline for the longest time. And then
We're
we made
too
the
old
smart
now for that stuff.
we
Like,
really
being in
are,
our
because
mid 30s, it's
it
like
took
early
me
30s,
all
right?
last week to catch up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, all last week, and that's so sad. But
But
like,
that's
it's
also
true.
partly because of the pandemic, right? Because you just haven't been doing anything that's that exertive in
Mhm.
such a long time, right? Like that one weekend, and so much of it was so compact that it's like the body isn't used to it, right? Like
Yeah.
doing as much exertion as we did.
And we also made the smart decision to go to another press screening right when we got back to Toronto. So
Smart.
yeah, we went and got
But we got Sunset Grill, which
got a
was
little
good.
sausage and eggs, and it was delicious. And then we went, and it was just a bad idea. Like, I was so tired during that movie. Like,
But we made it through. I think,
I
like,
gotta see it again, I think, but we can't talk about it. But
yeah. I mean, I chewed gum throughout the whole thing, and I think that kind of helped me get through it.
it was a struggle. But
Yeah.
that was our LA trip, everybody. So I hope this brings you.
Oh, and I took an Uber back to Durham, which I had never done before from Toronto.
Wasn't it lovely though?
Oh, it was. That was the one time I
lovely.
actually fell asleep. Was the Uber ride home?
Good, yeah. Yeah, it was quite the whirlwind weekend. But I hope our adventure brings you some idea of what traveling could be like moving forward for the next little while. I don't So I guess to wrap things up, Eric, we don't need to go over, and I think this episode can literally just be about our LA trip.
Yeah.
And would you've been doing the 1 day trip, for the last, this is my first one.
Yeah.
You've been doing it. So obviously you have been doing it, and you continue to do it, where I really, really enjoyed myself. However, I don't know if I would do the 1 day trip again. Like, it is a lot, especially during COVID and everything right now, like, for 1 day. And I think other critics made a smart choice of, uh, they're very flexible when you book this kind of stuff, because you can tell them, book my flight for Friday and book my next flight for the Friday home. So essentially they don't care when you come home. They'll pay for you to come home, right?
Yeah, they're not going to
It's
put
just,
you up though for like if you
yes.
stay that long. It's for the one night, really.
And you gotta find a place to stay for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
They don't care what you do, or we'll pay for your way home because we paid for your way out there. So next time, I think I would, no matter what, probably extend the trip, even if it's just by a couple days, just because I feel like it's a long way to travel.
You need time to decompress.
Yes. And I think that's, even if it's just an extra 2 days or something, right? Like, I feel like that makes it a bit more worth it. And now that we're doing this together, that might be a thing, because we can just split an Airbnb or something, right?
Yeah,
So it's
I
not
would be
like,
down.
so it's not like it's it's more cost effective because we can stay in the same room and or the same hotel room or the same Airbnb, and then
smell
it makes
each other's farts.
just how I want it. That might make it a little bit, not saying that this wasn't worth it. It was just like, it broke me a little bit. Like,
Right.
the flying there and then flying right home the next day, it was a fun thing that I don't ever want to do again, because
Right.
like, the 28 hours in a row staying awake, just the amount of airport time and flight time that we were at transferring. And I would try to get a direct there and back. Like, I would never transfer again. And but that being said, I'm so glad I did it, and I had an absolute blast doing it. So
yeah, I'm on your page, and like as well, like I love doing it, and I like taking advantage of it, because it's something that comes, that we're lucky that it comes with, being a part of this association. And it, again, it's surreal, it's silly, but it's also kind of nice, like at the end of the year is like this weird thing where it almost feels like the work you do maybe not matters, but at least it's some kind of weird like incentive
It's like
of
an
like,
acknowledgement, or just like, oh hey, like yeah, I get that.
yeah. And like, again, the Netflix stuff is always good. I've never done anything outside of the Netflix stuff, so I'd be curious, like, if that were to happen with any other streaming service per se or something like that, because I feel like the streamers are the ones that can bankroll that kind of thing,
They can
and not
afford it,
maybe the
yeah.
major studios, where like even though they're still major corporations, they don't have that much money when it comes to putting up people for even a night. Like it's still ridiculous when you think about like, oh, you could just send like a screener, or like one of these packages like we got for the
It's
Mitchells versus the
yeah.
Machines, right? Or
It's
you could, we talked about this as well, like if you really want to have that kind of like full experience, why not do it for like a week and have like a mini festival, and have like 5 or 6, like if you're Netflix, like have 5 or 6 of your awards films screen every night, and have a block of critics choice
like a little mini
members.
voting festival kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Like, here are all of our movies. Yeah.
because
No,
ultimately it doesn't change like how you like, we're I think somewhat moral enough that we're not corrupted by it, where like if you like the movie, you like the movie and you're going to vote for it, but if you don't, it's just like a nice kind of like, oh, thanks for including me, I'm not necessarily going to vote for your movie, but I appreciate the gesture.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening. I know it wasn't our typical episode, what we've been watching and news. We did cover a bunch of news in our Disney Plus Day conversation. So you guys can go check that out over on the Conversations channel. And then, when it comes to movies, I haven't been watching that much other than stuff that we've had to review. So we'll cover that next week and things like that. But I thought this LA trip was a fun kind of conversation, so you guys can get a little insight of how that trip went for us. But yeah, go check out that conversation about Disney Plus Day. We also have reviews up for Ghostbusters Afterlife, Home Sweet Home Alone, Red Notice, that you guys can check out. And then we will have another conversation going up next week for Ghostbusters Afterlife, where Eric and I have a spoiler filled conversation about that movie. So that should be fun as
And we'll probably
well.
also have a Hawkeye review coming up soon as well
Yeah,
for the first 2
soon.
episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And more movies coming up too. That's tis the season, so we still have a lot that we haven't seen. We'll be busy right up until the end of the year for sure. So your one-stop shop for everything is going to be over on Letterbox. Just go to Untitled_cast, but you can search for us, Untitled Movie Podcast, on YouTube and podcast services. You can also search for Untitled Movie Reviews and Untitled Movie Conversations on both of those as well. Thank you all for listening. As always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews at rogerstv.com/cinemascene, and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
In the immortal words of Randy Newman, I love LA.